WBZ TV, Boston. Next on WBZ News 4.
The fury of Bertha, the first hurricane of the season, shuts down air travel between Boston and the Caribbean. A Maynard woman charged with raping a teenage boy. Prosecutors say it is the story of a broken trust. And tonight, a WBZ exclusive, her life within the powerful family dynasty of the Reverend Myung Moon. She says the family is living a lie. News 4 begins now.
Now, Jack Williams, Liz Walker, Bruce Schwegler, Bob Lobel. Now, live, this is WBZ News 4.
The exclusive. A mother of 5 children who says she was beaten and abused for years is seeking help and shelter here in Massachusetts. Her name is Nan Sook Hong, and she was married to the oldest son of the Reverend Myung Moon, leader of the Unification Church. You may know them as the Moonies. They're a wealthy and powerful family whose influence extends around the world. But as Nan Sook Hong told WBZ's Suzanne Bates, the Moon family is anything but the ideal one that Reverend Moon claims it to be.
I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but
Nan Sook Hong was 15 years old when her marriage to Hyojin Moon was arranged by Moon's father, the Reverend Myung Moon, leader of the Unification Church. She had seen but never met anyone in the Moon family, including her husband. Why did she go along?
That's how I was raised all my life, to say yes to Reverend Moon when it comes to the wedding.
The Moons are a wealthy, powerful family, Nan Sook says, living the good life with swimming pools and mansions. But as for her marriage, Nan Sook says it was hell. She says Hyojin was frequently drunk or high on cocaine, sometimes locking himself in their bedroom for days to do drugs and watch pornographic films. For most of their marriage, she says, Hyojin beat her, abused her sexually and emotionally, and threatened to kill her if she spoke up.
He started physically abusive when I was pregnant with my second daughter. Well, I was afraid for the baby. He was saying that he's going to kill the baby, he's going to punch my stomach and kill the baby. I think that he would hit my tummy. And then, well, he basically kept punching me until he felt better.
Nan Sook told me she endured the abuse, believing it was her mission from God. And she says she found the courage to leave when she realized she might not survive.
But I realized once he punched me, he sees the blood, then he says there's a thrill to be violent. And he kept going, punching here and there, my face, my chest, and arm, everywhere.
So she plotted her escape, and with the help of a friend, Madeline Pretorius, Nan Sook made it to Massachusetts by packing her 5 children in a minivan in the middle of the night and fleeing to Lexington, Massachusetts, where her brother lives. She fled not just her husband, but the family headed by the Reverend Myung Moon, who at age 75 commands a multi-billion-dollar empire of churches and foundations. The Reverend Moon is known for these mass wedding ceremonies in stadiums around the world. But many don't know, according to Nan Sook, Moon lives a lavish lifestyle, traveling by private jet with servants and bodyguards to homes and vacations all over the world.
Reverend Moon, he controls the whole church's finances, which up to now I think had billions and billions of dollars.
Moon claims he is the Messiah, that he and his wife are the true parents, the Moon family, the ideal family. He preaches against drinking, drugs, and promiscuous sex. Yet Hyojin, the oldest son who could inherit the power and riches of the Unification Church, appears to defy his father's words.
I'm going to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Last month, Hyojin was in criminal court in Massachusetts to face charges he violated a restraining order by sending a threatening letter to Nan Sook. He pleaded guilty.
I understand you wish to plead guilty to this, not Mr. Moon. Yes.
The judge sentenced Moon to 18 months probation, ordered him to undergo random drug tests and counseling for drug and alcohol abuse.
But a violation could subject you to 2.5 years in the House of Correction. Do you understand that?
Yes.
After the hearing, his attorney said Hyojin will comply with the judge's order. And Hyo-jin said he will speak publicly when his divorce is final.
Well, after everything's over, if I'm going through the divorce proceeding, after the termination, I would love to sit down with you and talk to you all about it.
I think we'll defer proceedure until that time.
You don't have any further comment on your wife's allegations about your threats to kill her?
Not right now. When it's all over, sure.
Thank you.
Though his attorney promised Hyo-jin will follow the judge's order, there is no evidence Hyo-jin Moon has any regard for the law. Not only did he threaten Nan Sook, a violation of the restraining order, he was on probation for 2 drunk driving convictions when he was arrested again for driving with a suspended license, a charge to which he pleaded guilty. And Nan Sook says her husband has ignored another judge's order to turn over a sizable collection of guns to police.
He has no regard for the law, for system. Everything always covered for him. He could get away with everything, using people, resources, basically church's foundation.
While the criminal matters get resolved, Nan Sook is also fighting in divorce court to get her husband to support her and her 5 children. She spent thousands and thousands in legal fees trying to collect monthly child support payments ordered by the court, which she says are almost always late.
It's a constant fear for me, because whether I can support my children or not. And what I wanted from the family is just to acknowledge their responsibility about the children.
Nan Sook decided to tell her story in part because she's still afraid of what her husband and his family will do.
Well, I think they will be very upset for the fact that I went to public. And, oh gosh, I don't know what they're going to do. If they decide that, it's their interest that I disappear, then that's another possibility.
Nan Sook also wants to expose the Moon family and some church leaders.
Reverend Moon's lifestyle is lavish. He has 50, 60 security guards, maids, and cooks, and personal maids, and he traveled first class. He was thinking about buying private jet. Once you have favor of Reverend Moon, you can basically do whatever you want.
Reverend Moon has said he will conquer and subjugate the world, once proclaiming, "I am your brain." Nan Sook Moon, the first and only member of the family to break away, says she fears the Moons, but she will never again be silent. Suzanne Bates, WBZ News 4.
In a letter to WBZ-TV, the Moon family attorney said they consider broadcast of Nan Sook Moon's interview to be a violation of a court order in the case. However, according to Nan Sook's attorneys, she is not barred from speaking publicly by any court order or agreement. We will follow the story. We'll let you know what happens.
There's much more ahead on News 4. Here's some of the stories.
Ms. Walker, Jack Williams, WBZ News 4 continues.
A follow-up now to our exclusive story earlier this month on Nan Sook Moon. She is married to the oldest son of the Reverend Myung Moon, the leader of the Unification Church. Nan Sook Moon and her husband are involved in a bitter divorce battle that includes allegations of physical abuse, drug abuse, and threats. Tonight, her husband is in jail, serving 30 days for contempt of court. Hyo-jin Moon was led away from Concord District Court in handcuffs today, in stark contrast to what he's used to. Last week, in an exclusive interview with WBZ's Suzanne Bates, Moon's estranged wife, Nan Sook Moon, alleged he had beaten and threatened her. Mrs. Moon says fear for her life convinced her to leave the stormy prearranged marriage and flee to Lexington with their 5 children.
He started physically abusive when I was pregnant with my second daughter. Well, I was afraid for the baby. I was he was saying that he's going to kill the baby. He's going to punch my stomach and kill the baby.
Nan Sook Moon tells of the Moon family's lavish lifestyle and of her husband's use of drugs. Last month, Hyo-jin pleaded guilty to violating a restraining order. He agreed to undergo random drug tests and counseling for drug and alcohol abuse.
This is Middlesex Probate Court docket number 95D2989 on the Moon v. Moon matter.
In court today, Hyo-jin was held in contempt for ignoring a court order to pay $65,000 in fees to his wife's attorneys. The defense claims Hyo-jin Moon does not have the money.
Anyone who looks at the evidence in this case would be satisfied that he does not have $65,000 available to him to make that payment.
The judge wasn't convinced.
He's in contempt. He's in contempt. He's in contempt.
Judge Edward Ginsburg ruled Moon's lifestyle makes it obvious the money is available.
The marital home, which admittedly is used for other purposes too, has been appraised for over $23 million.
The judge ordered Hyo-jin Moon to spend 30 days behind bars at Middlesex County Jail unless he finds a way to pay up sooner. Hyo-jin Moon's attorney is planning an appeal. He has filed for a stay of the sentence, a request that was taken under advisement late this afternoon. But at this hour, Hyo-jin Moon is still behind bars in Cambridge. Of course, we will keep you posted on this story. Now, a follow-up to a News 4 exclusive. You may recall the story we did on the divorce case involving Nan Sook Moon and her husband, Hyo-jin Moon. Hyo-jin Moon is the oldest son of the Reverend Myung Moon, an heir to the wealthy, powerful Unification Church. Tonight, Hyo remains in a Massachusetts jail, still refusing to pay tens of thousands of dollars. News 4 anchor Suzanne Bates broke this story and now has this follow-up.
Shackled and slightly subdued by 30 days in the Middlesex County Jail, Hyo-jin Moon came back to court and claimed again he's too broke to pay $65,000 in his wife's legal fees ordered by the judge. The Moon family, headed by Reverend Myung Moon, is widely believed to be worth billions. Hyo-jin's own secretary recently testified in court he brought home $600,000 cash in brown paper bags. But today, Hyo-jin's attorney said Hyo-jin can't pay because the Moon family cut him off.
His compensation has been terminated. He is no longer a beneficiary of the family trust.
But Judge Edward Ginsburg didn't buy Hyo-jin's claim of poverty. He said he believes the Moon family is trying to squeeze Nan Sook Moon and her 5 young children.
He can pay the money, that money can be paid. If he chooses to be stubborn, that's his problem, not this court's problem.
Nan Sook Moon fled her husband and the Moon family compound after surviving what she described as a violent and abusive marriage. Judge Ginsburg agreed she must have money to pay her legal defense and ordered Hyo-jin back to jail for another 60 days. Why haven't you paid the money?
The client has paid all of the support to his wife and children that this court has ordered.
He's paid it consistently from day one. He paid it on a voluntary basis, and he paid it pursuant to court order.
He hasn't paid the legal fees that were ordered in February.
The legal fees are not support for his wife and children.
Nan Sook's attorney says the family is now threatening to cut off child support as well, and Nan Sook has no other income.
The church and the family is going to devote all their energies not to trying to resolve the situation, but to winning and grinding their own grandchildren down. It's a pathetic, terrible situation.
Whether or not Hyo-jin Moon can afford to pay, it's certain the Moon family could. Reverend Myung Moon, who claims to be the Messiah and the champion of family values, has millions of dollars in trust funds which have always supported his family. But he's not writing any checks to get his first son out of jail. In Cambridge, Suzanne Bates, WBZ News 4.
Of course, Suzanne will continue to track this story and we'll let you know what the outcome is.
If you're a 15-year-old Korean girl and your spiritual leader, your Messiah, selects you to marry his son, that is about as close as you can get to heaven on earth. But sadly, Nan Sook Hong's marriage into the Reverend Myung Moon's family turned out to be more like hell on earth. As you will hear from her and from one of Myung Moon's daughters, Moon himself and some of his children have not always practiced what Moon preaches. His Unification Church stresses no sex outside marriage, no alcohol, no illegal drugs. But Nan Sook says that is not what she saw after she married the Reverend's eldest son, Hyo-jin Moon, the young man they call the Prince.
He was the prince. He was very abusive, both physically and emotionally. He is alcoholic. He's addicted to drugs.
After all, isn't it give and take?
And she told us he was high on cocaine or some other drug when he made this rambling, angry, off-color speech to a church group.
I'm standing here being judged by you. do you judge me by? Huh?
Nan Sook didn't even know Hyojin when she was chosen to marry him, and she certainly didn't expect a drug addict. She'd been brought up believing that the Reverend Moon's family was without sin.
We had a lot of Moon and his family pictures that as a child, as a teenager, we adored, we admired, we looked at those nice smiles and happy family, and we thought that was ideal family.
The Reverend Moon calls his family the true family, the perfect family.
Moon is perfect human being. He's the only perfect human being on the earth. And he can choose his wife, and his wife becomes perfect as well. And so his children become perfect because they are from this perfect man and perfect woman.
And so when Moon marries more than 1,000 couples at once, as he did in New York last June, he exhorts them to live the high moral life that he supposedly exemplifies. The church told us Moon himself had matched each couple by studying their pictures and brief biographies. And the newlyweds say they want their families to be just as virtuous as his.
He sets an example as to how to be true parents. The world is in dire need of strong family values. That he not only preaches that, but he lives it as well.
They have true family, and they bring up children of goodness.
And without sin?
No sin at all. No sin.
And drugs?
No drugs.
Alcohol?
No alcohol.
Moon's theology that he is the perfect man who can create perfect family, I think kind of falls apart if I look at his children.
The Moons gave birth to 13 children, and various individuals who've been close to them told us that in violation of church rules, they have seen some of Moon's children drink alcohol, smoke, and use illegal drugs. And Nan Sook soon learned that her husband is the worst of them. She lived with him here at the Moons' opulent estate north of New York City. She says the Moons knew all about her husband's drug problem, but still they spoiled him, kept showering him with cash.
When he needed cash, he went to his mom, and his mom would give him from $1,000 up to $50,000 and some more.
From $1,000 to $50,000?
Yes, depends what he asks and what kind of mood the parents are in.
Where did all this cash come from?
I believe mainly it's coming from Japan. When Japanese leaders come in, they bring cash in, and basically they give to Reverend and Mrs. Moon.
And how would his son use those church donations?
He basically used for his cocaine, his party, his waitress, hostess, bar hopping, all the fun things that a person can do.
Those fun things apparently included mistresses. Hyojin told her he was entitled to have affairs because his father had had them. And she says Reverend Moon himself confirmed to her that he had had affairs, but the Reverend told her that God wanted him to.
He told me in person that he called it providential affairs.
Providential affairs?
Providential affairs.
What is
it? Providential means it's God's mission. So he had to have these affairs, extramarital affairs, because it was providential. It was God's mission that he had to fulfill.
Of course, Reverend Moon does not tell his followers about that part of God's mission. Instead, he preaches that adultery is a major sin.
That's the worst sin that Unification Church members could commit, to commit adultery. Mm-hmm. Then you will basically burn in hell forever. That's the one single most worst thing that you can do. But Hyojin did many times, and his parents know, but there's nothing they do.
But worse than the affairs, she says, the Reverend's eldest son would beat her. One awful night, she told us, he pummeled her while she was pregnant with their 5th child.
He was doing his cocaine ritual, and against my better judgment, I went and said, I really have to talk to you. I said, I just cannot live like this. And I took his cocaine, I tried to flush it down the toilet, and that's when it started punching. And I did get black eyes, and I got bloody nose, and but the big fear was that he kept saying he's gonna kill the baby.
That you were carrying?
I was carrying, I was 7 months pregnant, I was pretty big. And he kept saying, I'm going to kill the baby, I'm going to kill the baby. And that's the worst fear I had, that he might punch, and then something would happen.
Whenever she told Reverend and Mrs. Moon about the beatings, Nan Sook says they blamed her.
I was not an ideal wife for Hyojin. That's why Hyojin behaved a certain way toward me. And I wasn't a good member of their family. So also it was my fate.
Who told you that, Mrs. Moon? Or?
Both of them, yes. And it was my fate that I have to endure these things.
Sounds familiar.
Nan Sook is getting support from a surprising source, one of Reverend Moon's daughters, Jin Moon. She told us her parents blamed her, too, when she was abused by her husband.
Did he beat you?
Yes.
And you would tell your folks?
Yes.
And they would say?
I deserved it.
Jin Moon is estranged from her parents, but she has never criticized them in public before. She and a close friend, Jeannie Honard, said that by coming forward, they hope to dissuade people from joining cults. Off camera, Jin told us she does not believe her father's the Messiah. On camera, she put it this way.
He's just my father. I think that in itself should say a whole lot.
Jin is a Moon, but not a Moonie, not a believer in her father's church.
I believe in a God, but I don't think that I want to belong to one particular denomination now.
What do you think of Nan Sook? Honest?
I think she's very honest.
Do you admire her? Do you respect her? Do you believe her?
Yes, I do. I respect and admire her very much.
Nan Sook got a degree in art history from Barnard College. Though she realized the perfect family was far from perfect, she tried to be philosophical about it.
So what you're saying is that they're like
everybody else, like all of us who are dysfunctional. I think every family has problems. So they're like everybody else, but a little more dysfunctional than, I think, ordinary middle-class family.
Well, they have more money to help them to be dysfunctional.
Yes.
The church won't say how much money Moon has or how many businesses he owns, but over the years he's reported to have amassed hundreds of millions of dollars. Former Moon insider Donna Collins was the first Western child in Moon's church. She was born into it because her parents set up the church in England.
I grew up believing he was the Messiah, but I can't imagine it now.
Moon took a personal interest in Donna, and as a favored child from the West, she saw a lot of Moon's family.
I had more contact with his family than the average member, which is probably what led me to leave, because I saw a lot of the discrepancies between the teachings and his behavior and his family life.
The final straw for Donna and her parents came, she says, when they discovered another Moon family secret, that the Reverend has at least one illegitimate son. Moon's daughter confirmed that.
That I know of, yes.
You know the child?
Yes, his name is Sammy.
And Jin Moon told us that the warm family pictures in the church magazine give a false impression. That the truth is Moon spent very little time with his children, and that he and most of his children have never been close. Nan Sook says there's even a language barrier between Moon and his 5 youngest children.
Well, do his young children speak Korean?
Not really.
And the father doesn't speak much English?
Father doesn't, no.
So what you're saying is that the
younger ones really do not
They can't talk to their dad?
No, they can't. They can't really communicate.
Actually, that's what his daughter told me as well. But then I would say the communication that he had, even with his older children, wasn't particularly intimate.
Do you worry at all that there might be some kind of revenge exacted upon you for your speaking out?
Yes, I was extremely frightened for a long time. I couldn't speak out. But I think there is some safety in going public, and I certainly wanted to support Nan Sook because I think it's wonderful that the truth comes out about him and his family.
Over the years, Nan Sook says her husband became increasingly violent, and she feared that he might hurt the children. So, one night, 3 years ago, while she says her husband was locked in their bedroom after hours of cocaine, she hustled her 5 children into a minivan, hid them under blankets, and drove them out of the Moon's luxurious estate, never to return. Now you live in a modest house in Lexington, Massachusetts. No swimming pools, no bowling alleys, no...
No babysitters, no drivers.
No, right.
No cook.
You're the cook?
I'm the cook. I had to learn.
How have the children adjusted to this new lifestyle?
Oh, wonderfully. I'm proud of them. We all had to learn a new way of life.
A life that also includes fear of retaliation from the Moons.
They're not going to control my life. And I basically have to live with the fear that I have, that somebody might do something to me. But that's life.
After telling a divorce court what she has told us about her husband, Nan Sook got her divorce plus $600,000 in cash and $9,000 a month for child support. Now 32 years old, she works at a center helping battered women, and she has just completed a book called In the Shadow of the Moons. Why are you telling this story?
Because I feel that I was duped.
Duped.
I feel I was conned. And I had certain naive, I think, idealism that I wanted to work for God. And I do think a lot of people have that. And a lot of organizations like Moon do take full advantage of those people. And I was one of them.
Nan Sook still believes in God, but she has a new way of looking at Reverend Moon.
I did come to conclusion that Reverend Moon just cannot be the Messiah.
What you're saying is that he's a phony.
A con man.
The Reverend Sun Myung Moon is a con man.
That's the conclusion I came with. Living with their family for 15 years.
The Reverend and Mrs. Moon declined to talk to us, but they did send us a brief statement. They wrote in part, "We commiserate with Nan Sook over the suffering arising from the tragic personal problems our son has faced. We as parents feel a deep sense of responsibility."